Hey everybody, it's John Hope Bryant. I'm in Washington, D.C., heading to the airport. I only have a few minutes, but I thought this was an important conversation to have. My government relations director, Janae Roscoe, is in the back seat. My man Cash is taking me, minority entrepreneur, taking me to the airport. Just finished a day in Washington. I did an interview with Roland Martin this morning, the founder, chairman, CEO of Operation Hope, by the way. If you're logging on, put your questions below. I'll try to answer them in the next few minutes. It's going to be a short video because I'm taking a flight to Denver tonight. But I did Roland Martin's radio program this morning, and it really frustrated me. Because I think, we get so, and I'm talking about African Americans now, we get so wrapped up in our pain and so wrapped up in our frustrations and so wrapped up in what's not working in our lives and so wrapped up in disappointment and so traumatized by a history of discrimination and racism and the effects, the generational effects of slavery and being put down, that we're now all too often just angry for a living. And in many ways, that's a part of the modern slavery, right? So Harriet Tubman was once told, "Thank you for saving so many slaves." And her response was, "I would have saved many more slaves if they had only known they were slaves." I want that to sit in for a moment. I would have saved many more slaves, she said, Harriet Tubman, if they'd only known they were slaves. I mean that in 2 points. Point number one, if you're living in an urban inner city community, here's what you see. You see a check casher next to a payday loan lender, next to a rent-to-own store, next to a title lender, next to a liquor store. We think that's normal. It's not normal. And they're preying on you, but they're not even preying on black people, because you've got more poor whites in America than poor anybody else. You have that same situation in rural America. They're preying on a 500 credit score customer. And if you want to find the worst of everything, homicide rates, dropout rates, crime rates, low unemployment, high levels of hopelessness, high level of incarceration, look for a 500 credit score neighborhood. I guarantee you. You can statistically overlay the zip code of a 500 credit score neighborhood with all the problems. But we don't look at it that way. We want to assume that everything is racism and everything is somebody targeting you. No, after a while, they convince you that you are not important. They convince you to stay angry and be emotional. You can't be black for a living, folks. You can't be angry for a living. You've got to deliver some value. It's like, I was talking to some dudes at this conference I just spoke at. It's like, he's got like 1% architects trying to get jobs who are black. And it's like 1% accountants and no one's keeping you from like going to school and getting this degree. Connection. So the video has got poor connection going to the airport. At least you know this is live and there's nobody doing this but me. I'm gonna try to get through this. The second part of this piece. So the first part is, we have these neighborhoods that are really modern slavery. And to quote Andrew Young, Ambassador Andrew Young, who's Dr. King's aide in the civil rights movement, to live in a system of free enterprise and not to understand the rules of free enterprise must be the very definition of slavery. I'm going to repeat that. To live in a system of free enterprise and not to understand the rules of free enterprise must be the very definition of slavery. It's what we don't know that we don't know that's killing us. Ferguson, Missouri, that's not racism, that's no jobs. What did my boy Van Jones said? The best way to stop a bullet is a job. Baltimore rioting, no jobs. Wherever you find problems, you find no jobs and 500 credit scores. I'm going to reduce this down to a scientific equation so we can solve it and get out of this emotional thing, which leads me to my second point and why I was so distressed today. So I did this interview, and we're pulling up the airport here soon. I did this interview with Roland Martin, who I love, and we're dropping some stats and some knowledge and facts, whatever. We're talking about how we were solving problems with credit scores and building communities and so on and so forth. I happen to mention slavery. Man, that's all anybody wanted to talk about. All of a sudden, all the tweets are, "Oh man, you wrong about slavery," and "Oh, slavery is about racism," and it's not just about economic. Jesus Christ, folks! It's like you just push a pain button, and we just go off the rails because our pain is so deep, and then we get distracted from the solution. Nobody talked about the solutions we were providing, and then the racist wins because he's got you off your game. If I was the Grand Master of the Ku Klux Klan, I've never said this publicly, I'd say don't call them the N-word, don't get them organized, don't let them focus, just let them go. They're killing themselves. They're shooting black on black crime. They're selling drugs to each other. They're player hating each other. They're hurting each other. They're not trying to get jobs. They're not trying to get advanced degrees as a race of people. They're not trying to be entrepreneurs and small business. They're not trying to get our wealth. They just think that all capitalists are evil. I'm going to do a whole piece on free enterprise capitalism and real wealth. I may do that tonight when I landed in Denver. They're not trying to own big companies. They're not trying to, no, they think capitalists are evil. They think all of us are evil. Great, let them think that. If I was the Grand Master of the Ku Klux Klan, I'd say, leave them alone. They're killing themselves. We have got to stop being so dang on angry all the time about everything. Here's my parting shot. For somebody's going to watch this video and say, oh, John Bryant is saying racism doesn't exist. John Bryant saying that my pain's not real. John Bryant is, he's got a silver spoon in his mouth. Not true. I grew up in South Central LA, Compton, California. Was homeless for 6 months of my life. My mom and dad had an 8th grade education. Now what, right? But I'm going to say something else. Racism is sort of like rain. It's either falling someplace or it's gathering. So you might as well get out an umbrella in a color you like and start strolling through it, because it's not going to change, so you must. Life is 10% what life does to you and 90% how you choose to respond to it. What's your response going to be? Racism has been around since the beginning of time. It's not we talk about it like we heard about it in 11 o'clock news last night. I get frustrated sometimes that we are shooting ourselves in the foot. With all the institutional problems and the real racism and the real discrimination, we are now compounding it with pain of ourselves, and we then say, I can't do it, it's impossible, and we give up before we try. And I'm not going to give up. I'm just starting. We're going to launch a civil rights movement that's in the suites, not just the streets. And it's about giving people a hand up and believing that they can contribute, and backing them like a venture capitalist, and then watching the energy change in our neighborhoods and our communities. So let's be courageous, folks, because when you get to the pearly gates, God's not going to ask you, did you meet your budget, or were you angry at the races or the white man, or did you blame the right person for your problems? God's going to ask you 2 questions. 1, what'd you do for the least of these my children? 2, what'd you do to sustain my small planet? I don't know about you. I want to be able to answer one of those 2 questions. I love you much. I love you enough to talk to you straight, and I'm going to keep talking to you straight. And I say it with a great deal of respect. We can disagree without being disagreeable. I see there's some comments and some questions, both because I've got a weak signal on this video, and because I need to catch this airplane. I'm going to respond to these on the plane. I hope you don't mind. I see a lot of activity. Erica, Monel, Lynette, Michael, Ismael, Kevin Bernay, my friend. Michael Marshall says yes, yes, yes. Byron Dees, who's from Baltimore. Najee Ali, I love my brother. Love you so much. You're just part of the solution in LA, man. Rakita, my cousin. Byron, Andre, Mary from Alaska. Mark Love, Pinda from South Africa. Okay, I'm out. Spread the word. We started a new movement, folks. When we get this series to 1 million followers, we know we have a legitimate movement, and we're close. We're at 800,000. All right, peace and light. Love you much. Say hello, Janae.
Hello.
That's my government relations chief. All right, peace and light. I'm out.